Maybe a better way for Steve to get back. Oh, wait, we'll wait till Steve gets here. He said something about making a sign, right?
Everything's recorded.
Right, just in case. Some late, we have some late comers.
Learn not the hard way.
Exactly.
Yeah, YouTube.
Most of the time you can't hear it.
No, but
The problem is.
until it's the thing that you don't want to say. It's
When
Yeah.
somebody has a cell
The
phone,
drag
it's around the computer.
Not for the speed of the
Oh, really?
square.
That's right. That's right.
And so it's, at some point, we just can't possibly have enough power left.
Hi.
Did you get my email?
It'd be like a, yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we just pick some.
Well, I've asked John. to do it.
Oh, right.
But yeah, I had asked Brian earlier to do it, and he said no, and that throws me off.
Oh,
I can't get back to asking somebody else. So anyway, he said he couldn't do it. So I asked John if he's coming, he'll do it.
yeah.
Otherwise, well, no, I will not be there.
You won't be there. Yeah.
Not be there.
Okay, so I'll make sure that John is there, that John does it. And if
Yeah.
John doesn't do it, then I'll just fill it.
Okay, all righty. Good.
Yeah.
Yep.
I didn't see if John was.
All righty, we'll get started. Good evening. Welcome to the City of Hagerstown's Planning Commission meeting, December the 8th, 2021. With me tonight, fellow commissioners, Chris Davis sitting two down to my left. Got these out of order. Ron Thomas, far right, Jim Stone, near right, Shelley McIntyre, our ex officio and council person representative, immediate right, and down, way down the end, we welcome, and we're so excited she's here, is Tamara Martinez. Tamara, welcome. Glad you're here. Brand new, so take care, take it easy on them, will you? Okay, first, we have two parts of this meeting tonight. There'll first be a public review meeting. And the conclusion of that, well, then we'll move into the commissioner's regular meeting. We have two items to discuss or to present the public review meeting, and one of them is the 2021 Land Management Code text amendments, and the other one is amendment to the transportation section of the comprehensive plan. I guess we'll need to take each one of these separately. And the way we conduct these will be that first, we'll have a presentation by staff and to be interrupted continuously by questions from the commission. And then we will call for public testimony. And so I will ask those who wish to speak in favor to come forward one at a time. Please make sure you announce your name. It's come to the lectern there. Name and address, we need that for our records. And we ask that you, we don't want you necessarily to be brief, but we don't want you to continue to repeat the same points. And if I find that, I will ask you to move on to the next subject. Then I'll call on those who are against the text amendments. And we finally, when we've heard from everybody, we'll conclude that. And I'll be entertaining a motion from the commission about keeping the record open and when to decide then to make our recommendations to the mayor and council. This is only one step. We have an exact duplicate set of meetings that'll follow in front of the mayor and council. They will do the same thing. They will announce it publicly, advertise it, have a meeting, do the same steps that I just outlined. And then subsequent to that meeting, at another meeting, they will make a final determination. So we'll do them separately. First, the Land Management Code text amendment, then the amendment to the transportation section of the comprehensive plan. Steve, you want to be presenting these?
Yeah, I'll be here presenting this one, and then Kathy will be doing the transportation plan one.
Okay,
And I do know that we're going to have at least one party testifying via Zoom. They requested the information, so.
good. I'm glad you pointed that out.
Okay, this is the annual land management code update for 2021. Public hearing is on December 8th, 2021. Each year, staff and the planning commission processes a collection of proposed updates and amendments to the land management code based on observations of issues with the adopted text and issues that may be observed or raised in the previous 12 months that are not sufficiently addressed in the code. We get them all together over the course of a year, and then we deal with them at one time, rather than piecemeal amend the ordinance several times a year. The land management code is a consolidation of 4 previous standalone ordinances as follows: the zoning ordinance, subdivision and land development ordinance, floodplain management ordinance, and forest conservation ordinance. Planning commission will take testimony on December 8th. That's this hearing that we're in now. Custom is that the commission will hold the record open for 10 days for additional testimony to be submitted in writing. After that 10-day period, the commission will meet and determine what proposals to recommend to the mayor and council and forwards its recommendation to that body. The mayor and council will then, as the chairman mentioned, hold their own separate hearing and decision-making process. The ordinance goes into effect 30 days after it's adopted, once the mayor and council decides what they're going to approve. This whole process should be completed around April. We have 6 proposals in the package. And some of these, when we say proposals, we kind of group them into themes. A couple of them are standalone, but other ones are consolidations of themes. Proposal 1 deals with crisis care facilities, emergency transient housing, and homeless shelters. It provides definitions for these uses. It also permits homeless shelters in the CG, INST, R, and IG zoning districts as a special exception use. A special exception must be approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals to start these uses in these districts. It permits crisis care facilities as a permitted use in the CG, CR, INST, POM, IR, IG, conversion, and PUD-R zoning districts. And that's by right, special exception is not involved. Within a dwelling unit, rooming unit, or hotel room, emergency transient housing is permitted anywhere in this. Those types of uses are permitted in the city. That's what the proposal is for proposal 1. Proposal 2 creates a new use of self-storage mini warehouse facilities on properties subject to a remediation plan approved by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and/or the Maryland Department of the Environment, subject to design standards. This would be permitted use in the POM zoning district. It also creates the previously mentioned design standards, which require a design where the garage bays facing only in the interior of the site when along public streets adjacent to a residential zoning district or residential land uses, and when adjacent to or across street rights away from a public park or school. In such cases, buildings will serve as a perimeter wall that blends architecturally with the adjacent land uses and buildings, requires a brick veneer on those facades, and requires gable roofs. Proposal number 3 are minor changes to the requirements of the conversion overlay zoning district. The purpose of this is to make this district a little bit more user-friendly and also to correct an administrative oversight. First is it addresses occupancy of additions. The way the ordinance is currently written, you can build an addition, you just can't put anything into it. It's kind of a peculiarity, so we're kind of fixing that. And then also it allows the creation of outdoor dining areas when they are accessory to a small-scale brewery, distillery, or winery, a hotel or motel with in-house dining, bed and breakfast inns, restaurants, banquet and reception facilities, and drinking places, brew pubs, distillery pubs, and wine pubs. Currently, all the uses have to be inside the building. You can't have outdoor uses. This would allow outdoor dining areas. Moving on to proposal 4. This is actually a cluster of 12 amendments that are all, it's kind of, this is the miscellaneous category. It's a total of 12 unrelated cleanup adjustments that do the following things. 1, clarify submission and plan requirements for human burial site reports. 2, requires large and small group homes to meet parking requirements in the NMU and CCMU zoning districts. 3, clarifies that setback requirements for additions in the rear of developed townhouses do not apply to decks. 4, update the plan signature blocks for surveyors used on plans. 5, remove the requirement that city unique ID number be included in the plans. The city really doesn't use this provision, this statistical information anymore. There's no real point in keeping it as a requirement. Number 6, clarify the expiration provisions for cases when nonconformity is destroyed by calamity and the property owner drags their feet in executing reconstruction. Number 7, allow waiver to the requirements for the new buildings in the CCMU district to be 2 or more stories, allowing the Planning Commission to approve 1-story buildings when elevations create the appearance of a 2 or more story building. Number 8, codify requirements for the documentation necessary for the application of a certificate of hardship for demolition. This is to help the HDC get more objective data out of applicants when evaluating whether or not a property meets the legal test for obtaining a demolition permit in the historic district. Number 9, clean up language on how the Planning Commission acts on a sketch plan. Number 10, cap the exception for building additions that do not require providing additional parking at 20,000 square feet of new building space. Number 11, create additional landscaping requirements for buildings that front 750 linear feet or more on a public street, and that they would be required to provide a proposal in their sketch plan stage for the site plan. And set 750 feet is not the width of the property, it's the width of the building facade facing the street. And then number 12, allow expired and converted non-conforming townhouses to be restored to their original construction and use. Proposal number 5, we have a package of 10 changes to improve the user friendliness of traditional subdivision design. And this includes, and I've kind of consolidated some of these, they're only listed 1 through 6, but there's a total of 10 provisions in the package. 1 is define the term ELL, and set new rear setback requirements for alley loaded garages and rear Ls. 2, allow accessory buildings attached to accessory buildings on adjacent lots. 3, create exception that permits lots to front on a park or open space if alley access is provided, and define front yard setback when the lot is fronting a park. 4, improve language to state rear yard parking is the preferred design and traditional street design is expected. 5, add locations of alleys to street plan requirements on sketch and development plans. Currently, their at locations of alleys are not required on sketch plans, but they should be. Number 6, create flexibility in alley construction standards based on the intended ownership and maintenance, whether or not it will be dedicated to the city or maintained by a homeowners association. And then the last proposal, 6, is a package of amendments associated with the sign regulations that reduce prohibitions on certain signs in the commercial and industrial districts, create standards for business park directory signs, provide standards on measuring warehouse buildings, permits roof signs, permits single buildings with articulated facades to appear to be a series of small, let me reread that. Permits single buildings with articulated facades, and the articulation is intended to appear for the building to appear to be a series of smaller attached buildings, to treat each of those individual articulated facades separately for the purposes of permitted sign area, rather than the entire building total. The actual text can be found on the city website at https://www.hagerstown.md.org/1338/LMC-amendments. This is on the planning and zoning webpage of the city's website. This hearing will be archived to YouTube quickly and can be reviewed on YouTube once posted if the viewer has missed anything. So if you're at home and you're taking notes on this and you miss something, you'll be able to review the entire contents of what we're doing here this evening by tomorrow morning, I would say. The documentation of legal advertisement in the official file is entered into the record of this hearing by reference. And after this meeting, if anybody has any questions, they can contact me. My name is Steve Bachmiller. I'm the city zoning administrator. My email address is sbachmiller@hagerstownmd.org. I can be reached at the city's telephone number at extension 139. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions? We've been over this many times, but still we have questions. Hearing none now, I'll go ahead and open the meeting for public testimony. And first ask if anybody here tonight would like to speak in favor of the text amendments?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
In favor?
yes.
Welcome. I asked you to give us your name and your address. You're still muted.
Okay, sorry. I didn't wanted to make sure that you were talking to me. Hi, how are you? My name is Milan Broadus, and my company name is Proactive Real Estate Solutions. And the property address is 438 and 440 Jonathan Street.
Welcome.
Thank you. So we are local investors, and we've got about 30 rental units in the city of Hagerstown. And our goal is really to provide nice, comfortable, and affordable housing for the city's residents. We purchased a row of townhomes with separate entrances, separate kitchens, separate stairways, and separate basements. The way the code is currently written, this space is to be used as a duplex due to the previous owner occupant opening one wall. So if the property had been a duplex instead of a townhome, we could simply just add that wall back, make it a duplex, and we'd be ready to move on. But we are definitely for the change in the code to allow the townhomes to be returned to their original configuration, regardless of non-conforming status, because the code currently allows this for duplexes, and it should be the same for townhomes as well.
Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
questions? Thank you very much. Anybody else who wants to speak in favor? Anybody opposed?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman,
Good evening.
Planning Commission.
Hello.
I'm going to just give you a summation. I'm only opposed, and I'm not opposed. I'm concerned, and I'll go with that as I make my testimony.
Ready, got extras. Thank you.
I am concerned about the second to last one, number 2021-07. That is everything pertaining to the alleys. I'm not against the design guidelines. Quite frankly, they make good sense if you're going to design alleys. What I am against is that when you read through this, is that it is now the requirement that it's going to be the preferred method. And my concern is we do it traditionally the way all the other lots on the outskirts of Hagerstown have been designed, where they don't have any alleys, that this is going to discourage residential development. Some things that we know of most certainly is that by making new subdivisions have both a street front and a rear loaded access alley will greatly increase the imperviousness of all new developments. Now, I do know that you don't have to have street fronts. You can do the park option, and that may work, but it's going to be very nouveau to what we've done here in Hagerstown. Not that I'm against it, but to make it the required is going to be difficult, and I think not work in the city's favor. This goes against doing more imperviousness, goes against Maryland's design standard of trying to reduce the impervious footprint and add, this will not decrease stormwater runoff, but if we're doing a street in the front and a street in the back, it is going to increase the stormwater runoff. It will also nearly double the cost of street and stormwater collection. Now you got to design the street in the back, the street in the front. You're going to have inlets in the back. You're going to have inlets in the front and pipes in the back and pipes in the front. And it's going to increase the cost of construction. It's going to increase the cost of design, because right now we design a street in the front. Now we're going to design a street in the front and the street, an alley in the rear. If alleys are to be used as rear loaded, will there be a change in the city's current alley width design standards so that two-way traffic can pass in that alley? Right now, the design standard, I think, is like 8, 10, and 12 feet. It's not 16 feet or 18 feet or 20 feet like it is for a normal street. Is trash collection being proposed in the rear portion of the lots? After reading through the ordinance, I see that it is, and another reason to make the alleys wider than what the current city's alley standards are. Would the alleys be HOA, homeowners association maintained, or city maintained? Again, after reading through this whole thing, I see that it can be either or. It's going to be the developer's choice. It can be city maintained, or it can be HOA maintained. One thing we know for sure is if it's HOA maintained, what did it just do to the price of the house? It increased the cost. If it's city maintained, and I checked with the city engineering department on this, I asked them, when do they plow the alleys? Last, if at all. So, I mean, it's just going to burden the city if it's city maintained, because now all the garages are going to be in the rear. That's the intent of it. And I'm not against the intent. And the design guidelines are reasonable. What I am against is now this is the new preferred method for all subdivisions. That is where the problem lies. I would like to see the planning commission, I would hope that they would look at this and say, the design guidelines are good, but it doesn't have to be preferred. Let's try it, let's work with it, because we don't have much of this right now. There are very few developments in the city, recent developments, that have an alley. There is one, and it's a very nice one. There may be others, but the one that we designed is West Churchy's development out on the east end of town. On that one, it's not age restricted by covenants, but it is designed to be child unfriendly. What do I mean by that? And I got this right from Wes. They have covenants in there that you can't have any playground equipment, no toys, no swimming pools, no nothing. And if you know anybody that lives out there, you'll find that I don't know that there's any children living out there, and most of them are middle age or upper age, and you know it works well for them. Wes says he loves it. Wes plows the alleys. Wes does have an HOA. He does all the plowing. He said the people like it because they walk through the alleys. Again, there's no kids. It was designed that way. So this can work well, but my concern is now this is the preferred way of all new subdivisions. And I'm hoping that we can say that this is encouraged, but it doesn't have to be the preferred way. We are working on a development right now that we're going to come in and see Steve on in January, and we're going to try to implement some of this. But that developer, who's a national developer, said, if this greatly increases the cost of construction, we won't do the project. They don't own the project yet. So that is my whole concern. Basically, will this help or hinder new house construction in the city? If it adds to the cost of design, construction, maintenance, security, and HOA fees, what is the real benefit? I know that the city, many of you maybe went to Pennsylvania and looked at a development. I think that one had alleys, very nice, HOA maintained, but the price point on those homes is higher than the average price point of what we see in Hagerstown. So we just need to take all that into consideration when we vote on this and say, this is what we now want, totally different from what we've always had, to can we say, let's look at this and try to encourage it, but not say it is the preferred method. And that's what it says several places in the proposed ordinance that's before you. I'll entertain any questions, and I thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, staff does have one question.
Sure.
What makes Hagerstown any different from any of the other places north and south and west of here that we've looked at that do it and it seems to work there? Why are we different?
Did you look at the per capita income, the average per capita income of our area versus some of these other areas. We know that when we go outside of our areas, you go to Frederick, their per capita income is much more than ours. You go to the area that you went to up there, and their per capita income is much higher than ours. If our per capita income was higher, this may work much better. But the developers are telling me that in their homework, they looked at the average per capita income, and this probably will not fly over the majority of lots that they would be developing. That is the difference.
So places like Charlestown, West Virginia.
Charlestown at West Virginia, I don't know what their per capita income is, but I would not be surprised to see anything in Jefferson County at a higher per capita than we have here. The work that I do down there, a lot of the people are working in DC.
Okay, and just to build on that, just so you're clear, the idea of it being the preferred doesn't mean it's the absolute requirement. It creates the dialogue from a starting point of the system would presume the traditional neighborhood is the design, the expected design, but it's written in such a way where it's open for discussion. So matter of fact, we had a development recently where they came in and they said, look, given this location and the circumstances, it doesn't make any sense here. And all of the members of this body agreed, and they're moving forward with a more, for lack of a better word, suburban style design.
We designed that project.
Right.
It's on the east end. Where are most of our developments? Where's the land available to develop in the city? Most of it is going to be newly annexed lands. It's not redeveloping in the city. If this was redeveloped in the city, we already have alleys. I get it. We already have alleys. They ought to be wider. My office is on an alley down there, but it's not wide enough. Of course, mine is better now that they widened it when they did the library. It is much better. But most of the development that you're going to see going forward is going to be in newly annexed land. And those people will probably want more of a suburban feel than a downtown urban feel. And that was their argument. They were led by an attorney and they were totally right. That's what they wanted. So that's what's going to work. If we're doing something on the outskirts, the 3 projects that we're working on right now are all not even annexed in. So they're all on the periphery of Hagerstown. And they're all in areas where they're more of a traditional design, at East Oak Ridge. That's one of them, where there are no alleys. And now we're going to put alleys in and try to bring an urban design to an area that is really was in the county, is in the county today. We're hoping to annex it in, but it's on the periphery. So, all of a sudden we bring an urban design into an area that's been built out for years on the periphery, and there's no alleys. So that's what I ask. Again, the design criteria is not bad. The only concern I have is it's now to be preferred, which I think is going to go against us when we come before you. It's going to be, well, you knew the rules that we just approved. This is what we want to see. It's not, if it's going to be preferred, I'm sure it's going to be pushed. I'd like, at least for a year or two, if we would just change the rules, but not make it preferred. Let's see how it goes then after we live with it for 2 years, rather than all of a sudden perhaps stifle ourselves when things are going pretty well.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Fred.
Anybody else would like to speak against the proposed text amendments? Ready, and we'll close that portion of the meeting. And I'll call upon the commission for any motions. Disposition of
I move the record open for 10 days.
Second.
10 days, that was, okay. 10 days, keep the record open. It's been seconded.
You have to pick one.
Oh, I didn't hear the second, but I heard Chris. Okay. We ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty, now we'll move on to the amendments to the transportation section of the comprehensive plan. We'll conduct this portion of the meeting the same way we did the last one.
More to sustain.
Like that. Okay, I'm gonna do some over here. My system is very awkward for this stuff. So this is the public review meeting for the proposed amendments to the transportation element of the comprehensive plan. I don't know if anyone, but somebody may know why. So, yeah. So the motivation for this amendment was, firstly, Mayor and Council direction to remove the north section of R. Paul Smith Boulevard from the Powell Road to Edgewood Drive. New roadway alignments are being recommended in the southeast area of the city where there's raw land getting development interest. Updates the project status in the Hagerstown Eastern Panhandle Metropolitan Planning Organization, or HEP MPO, or just MPO, 2040 Long Range Transportation Plan, which is what we used in our 2018 plan. But things have changed between 2018 and 2022, so we're trying to update the plan about that. And then after we adopted the plan, the MPO adopted a new long range transportation plan to provide some updates to indicate what changes were recommended inside the MRTA in that new plan that was adopted in 2018. Which they call that one. I don't know how the numbers work. 2015 and 2040 plan, the 2018 plan, the 2045 plan. The one they're working on right now is the 2050 plan, which is going to be adopted in 2022. But there's apparently this special map for transportation players. I'm not sure. So this is for the R. Paul Smith, the recommendation about removing from Howell Road, the direction there, from Howell Road to Edgewood. The map on the right shows we circled the area recommended to be removed from the Harrison track. And one of the reasons, as you can see in the map on the left, I don't even know if I'm holding this correctly. There's been development that has been approved out in the county since this plan was first recommended that now makes it impossible for R. Paul Smith to loop through the Harrison tract, cross over Howell, and get up to the dual highway without significant eminent domain and costs to demolish a few buildings. So it just didn't seem feasible anymore. Plus, the way the land is being proposed for development doesn't need a public road anymore. Whereas when this was first proposed, the land was being chopped off of the tract in 1 and 2 acre parcels. And the fear was, and all along Howell, and the fear was if you kept doing that, how is the rest of the tract going to be opened up for development unless this public road went through? So it no longer was, seemed to make a lot of sense, which is why the mayor and council directed that it be removed. And then the other road improvements recommended in the area also involve Harrison tracks that are in the southeast area of the city. So it's recommending that R. Paul Smith be extended up into the dual highway. So take a sharp left from where it ends right now, and then have a signaled intersection there, and then cross over into another Harrison tract. And so the yellow that you can just barely see on there is what was being recommended. The green is floodplain, which makes things a little challenging. But that's what's being recommended as a way to help with the transportation network as well as opening land up for development. We decided, since we were talking about a lot of land that was out for R. Paul Smith Boulevard that's outside of the city, that we should get together with the county, the mayor of Funkstown, and the developer of land over there that was waiting to develop. So on August 27th, we met with the stakeholders, the city staff, and mayor, Dave Miles. And then we also have zoomed in very quietly at the meeting several county staff members and the MPO director. So the discussions that we had in the meeting were the floodplain that's in the path of the connection to Heb Road, that's a challenge. The lack of property control between Heb Road and Lyles Tract, which is another challenge. Plans already approved in Funkstown on the land that Funkstown annexed in 2019 that is now, unless things were completely redesigned, makes it difficult to go from Beaver Creek down to alternate 40, which is what it originally recommended happening. And then the traffic challenges that are posed by the fact that there are limited road connections in this area. A lot of the traffic in this area and from South County are forced up into Funkstown at that light where the military statue is, which is, I forget what those names are, but it's alternate 40 the way it comes up there. And so our Paul Smith Boulevard is supposed to be another way to help provide alternate ways to get around, so you didn't all have to come into that intersection and then make your way back out again. So at the meeting, the county confirmed Gaver Meadows is the development in Funkstown that got approved on their 2019 annexation And they confirmed that their review of the traffic study for that development was that the transportation system could handle the additional traffic from the 150 homes on that land. Dave Lyles advised us that the county's requirement for him for getting Beaver Meadows approved was to widen Emmert from the dual highway to Beaver Creek. And he said on his plan, the entrance that we were seeing on his concept for his land, the Reese farm, was the east entrance on Beaver Creek for Beaver Meadow was emergency access only because the site distance is bad. The recommendations that came out of that meeting was to keep Southern Boulevard Phase 2 in the comp plan. That would be where that proposed road would swing over from Frederick Street, where that new circle is, down through city farm property and cross down to Edgewood. That's a big priority for the mayor of Funkstown, that stay in our plans so that he can continue to encourage the construction of that road. It's another way to get the traffic away from that intersection in this town. And then add to the comp plan the extension of R. Paul Smith to Dual Highway. Add to the comp plan proposed roadway improvements on the Harrison track on the north side of the Dual Highway, including extension of Day Road. And keep in the comp plan at this time the middle and southern legs of R. Paul Smith pending a future traffic study. We have a couple of maps. So that the one on the right is the new map in the plan to show all of these road alignments, including retaining Southern Boulevard, which is, they come a little bit closer. This is the last section of Southern Boulevard. This is the existing built part of, oh, got a little hand, of R. Paul Smith. It's recommended that it come up here, cross over to the other Harrison track, have an intersection here, allow for the connection here so that the Redwood folks have a little relief valve, because right now it's just a tricky place to, if you live up there, having to come and go. If it was hooked around, they'd have another way to get out at a light. And then this is the existing, actually the existing recommended in the current plan was to come through here. But there's all these houses the county approved here that made this impossible. And then Funkstown approved this development that now presumably makes it almost impossible here because it doesn't fit with what was approved. But anyway, we recommend leaving these sections in here and letting a future traffic study, which is actually underway now, determine the feasibility of those alignments. And then since we're in this area, we're also recommending roadway connections that help with raw land in this area between Emmert, I think it's Emmert, the dual highway, and then also getting over to the Dowd Farm, which was annexed into the city about 10 years ago now. All right, so that's the new map. The map on the left is the zoning map of the city, so you can just see a lot of that land down in that area is raw land that is getting some development interest right now. So it's a good time to be looking at our roadway improvement recommendations. Now we're talking about the long-range transportation plan of the MPO. The 2040 plan, which was the one they adopted around 2015, is what we've got in our plan. And so the area that we're really focusing on with these amendments is the yellow area, the southeast part of the city. So since we adopted our comp plan, there are some of the things have been implemented that were in the long-range transportation plan that were in our comp plan. Southern Boulevard, for example, has been built between East Oak Ridge and Frederick Street with a little circle now, not little, but significant circle on Frederick Street. Creighton Boulevard has been fully built out to Showalter Road, and then Edgewood Drive was widened from Robinwood all the way to Howell Road. And so the recommendation is to provide those updates in the plan, because the plan reads these things are on the horizon and they'll happen at some point. They've happened. And then modifications that were made in the plan they adopted in 2018, which they call the 2045 plan. These two projects within the city are not supported by the Planning Commission, one being widening of Basil Boulevard to 4 lanes, and the other being an extension of Western Maryland Parkway across the railroad tracks to railway lane. That would be a significant project. Not sure what the real benefit of that would be. And so those are two things that were recommended in the 2045 plan, but the Planning Commission does not support them. And then other things that were recommended outside the city, but within the medium range growth area in the 2045 plan, is they removed that long contested recommended Robinwood Drive bypass out to Maryland 64 that dropped out of the plan with that in 2045 plan. They added 4 projects One would be the extension of Colonel Henry Kidd Douglas Drive from Sharpsburg Pike eastward across Antietam Creek over to Ultimate 40. Extend Showalter Road over to Paradise Church Road, which is up on the very north end of the MRGA. Construct a roundabout at the Underpass Way and Halfway Boulevard over by Valley Mall. Reconstruct the Maryland 65 I-70 interchange. So apparently, even after what was done for Walmart, there's more that is desired to be done to that interchange. And then we recommend not doing any further updates to all the 2045 language because, as we've learned, the MPO is on the verge of, they say May 2022 is when they anticipate adopting their 2050 long-range transportation plan. So rather than trying to make all of the 2040 match the 2045, we're just going to wait. The recommendation is to wait until the 2050 is adopted, and then we can take a look at all of those things. Just seems we're caught in an awkward spot to be trying to respond to a plan that's on the verge of being outdated. Then we got, as is required with a comprehensive amendment, we send it out for the 60-day state clearinghouse review. We also went to the county and to Funkstown. And we got comments back from the Maryland Department of Planning on behalf of their department, as well as the Department of Disabilities and the Department of the Environment, not the Department of Transportation, oddly enough. But anyway, as a result of all the recommendations ahead, we're recommending a couple of additional changes to the text. One would be add more language to policy 5.6 on the city's goal to fill the gaps in the pedestrian network as funding allows. When development comes along, we work with developers to get sidewalks along their land, but there's other land that developed years and years ago that don't have sidewalks. So as we have city funds or state funds that we get through grants, we fill the gaps. And so that just makes it clear, based on that Department of Disability concern, that is something that is a goal of the city, and we work very hard at it. In fact, the dual highway, all of the sections in the city now have sidewalk because the city routinely was going after state money to fill those gaps. And then at the request of the Department of Planning, they suggested that we add a new action statement because the new text that we added about the southeast road alignments and the recommendation they be implemented, they said it would make sense for it to be an action statement, and it was a good point. So it indicates that traffic studies for the southeast area of the city should include assessment of the comp plans, transportation improvement recommendations for that area. Okay, so that's all that's recommended to be modified with a comprehensive plan. As is typical with our hearings, as you just heard with the previous hearing, we leave the record open for 10 days in case people couldn't make it out or couldn't get anything into us ahead of time. They have 10 more days to get us more feedback before the Planning Commission will review the input that we receive at a work session, probably in January. And then after they've looked at everything that we've heard, I'm sure there'll be a lot more here tonight, then they will see whether any further adjustments should be made and then forward it on to the Mayor and Council, and then they have their own public review process. And the soonest that a Mayor and Council public hearing be scheduled is probably late February based on the timing of coming through the Planning Commission and getting to them because there's a lot of advertising requirements. And also, before I forget, I would like to enter into the record the certification of advertisement for this hearing, as well as the Planning Commission file by reference. And that's all I've got.
I have one question, and I might have missed it. One time we talked about realigning Dade Road also, so as not to come into that intersection. Is that have it that new road that was going to parallel the dual highway to get up to the new R. Paul Smith East?
Yeah, the new map, the new that.
That
This-
5-5?
This is what this is intending to do, and to come over to the new road off of Day.
So we are discussing not connecting Dade Road to dual highway there,
Or providing an alternate way.
an alternate way. So
Yeah.
the Dade Road.
I don't think our
road-
plan was recommending making any comment about the pros or cons of this, just trying to make other alternatives possible.
Okay. And any further thoughts about utilizing the right of way that Randy Cohen had set aside? at the request of the city on the All-Star Court.
Wondering if that is that still at play, or was there a
The
building?
last site plan was still there.
It's still, but I believe there's a time limit on it. That I don't foresee anybody building a road. I think it's like a 6-year window on it. I could be wrong. We can get that information for you before you
Well, he's
formulate your meeting.
planning on building a building, anticipating that that'll be there. In other words, if he could utilize that land, I'm sure he would like to utilize that land.
He's probably hoping that whatever time limit is placed on it will tick away. and
Okay.
Do that down the road.
You'll get that
But
to us.
we'll get that data to you prior
Next
to
meeting. Okay.
discussing it.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? I still think they should condemn that to eminent domain on that building, but,
I mean, the one, the lot,
yeah, the one that the county doesn't build,
it screws up the alarm. and
everything, the whole plan, everything, screwed it all up.
Never happened.
No,
That's the
No, I
one
know.
there at,
that's me and going to
Dunkin'
get,
Donuts.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But that's the horses left the barn on that one. Okay, we're going to move on to the public testimony section. So first I'll call on those folks who would like to speak in favor of the revision to the comprehensive plan. Paul, is there anybody online?
I don't need to speak in favor of it, I just want to bring the planning commission up to date, that Paul Smith going out to the highway and that new light, that is all in design. KCI designed the state highway section, it's submitted to state highway, so it's not just something on paper, it is happening.
Thank you. Is there anybody who would like to speak against the proposed change to the comprehensive plan? Hearing none, I'll close that portion of the meeting and call on the commission to make a motion on disposition of this. Jim, you're invited to do that if you'd like to.
Oh, yeah. I'll make a motion to leave the record open 10 days.
Thank
I'll
you.
second.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll give the second to Ron this time.
Oh,
Okay, we ready to vote? Keep the record open for 10 days? All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Now we'll move on to the regular meeting. I've already conducted a roll call. And our first development review is the Board of County Commissioners and the Board of Ed wanting to swap land.
Yep, this is, one second while I didn't put the file number on the, this is subdivision plat S 2021-14. This is for a land swap between the Board of County Commissioners at Dalwood Park and the Board of Education, the technical high school property at 50 West Oak Ridge Drive. This plat results in a land swap between two publicly owned properties that does not result in the creation of new lots. The purpose of the subdivision is to add land to the technical high school property so the Board of Education can build a new building for teaching diesel repair to students. A site plan has been submitted and is currently under review. This plat would add 4.38 acres of land that fronts Oak Ridge Drive and is adjacent to the Duvenage complex to the technical high school lot. A smaller 0.26 acre wedge-shaped area in the northwestern corner of the high school property would be added to Dallas Woods Park. The high school property would increase from 49.63 acres to 53.74 acres. Park property would decrease from 14.27 acres to 10.15 acres. The following agencies have approved the plat: water, wastewater, and also we have since received approval from the fire marshal. See attached conditional approval from engineering. And staff planning has also approved it with one condition, basically that's summarized in the lower part of that of the staff report regarding removing the imaging of buildings on the plat. You really shouldn't have buildings located on the plat, so the final product wouldn't have the buildings located on it. Therefore, staff recommends approval subject to compliance with the requirements of the city engineer and the one condition from planning. You'll see up on the screen an air photo of the area to be subdivided. The area that is in red is part of Dowdwood Park. It's, of course, the park is mostly fronting on Maryland Avenue. Maryland Avenue. It's basically a neck or a very wide pipe stem that provides frontage down to Oak Ridge Drive. That will be absorbed into the high school property. And then what you see, that wedge-shaped white hatched area is an area that's part of the high school property that will become part of Dowdwood Park. And again, this is in anticipation of the construction of a new building at the Tech High School to teach diesel repair at approximately the location where you see that yellow triangle. Design that's not in front of you tonight, obviously, but there is a site plan that's currently pending for that. But staff recommends approval subject to compliance with the requirements of the city engineer, and the one comment from planning staff and representatives of the county is here this evening.
So the drawing will be corrected as far as the scale designation, the 200 versus the 100, engineering pointed out.
Yes.
All right. Any questions? Pretty straightforward, I think. Entertain a motion for approval or something for action.
I'll make a motion that we accept the site plan as submitted.
I think technically it's a plat.
Yes, final
Plat,
plat.
excuse me, I'm sorry, final plat. Yep, you're right, final plat.
As submitted or subject to the conditions?
Subject condition.
Subject to the conditions.
Second.
Okay, we're clear on the motion. All ready, we're ready to vote. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Who seconded that?
Me.
Okay, thank you.
Passes unanimously. Next one is a final plat also. City of Higgstown substation at Eastern Hill City Lakeland.
Okay, this is subdivision plat 2021-16. This is the plat for the creation of the lot for an existing electric substation. I'll clarify that this is an existing electric substation. Eastern Boulevard, South of Mount Road. This plat is for the creation of a single lot for the purpose of conveying the existing electric substation thereon from the city to its purchaser who owns the former Cascade plant on the west side of Eastern Boulevard. The city decided to sell this facility to that property owner, and this plat will facilitate the transfer while allowing the remaining lands to remain with the city. The new lot will be 0.75 acres and will front Eastern Boulevard. The parent parcel will be reduced from 9.47 acres in area to 8.72 acres. No development is proposed, and the lot is less than 40,000 square feet. So forest conservation does not apply to this project. The following agencies have provided approvals: water, light, wastewater, city engineering, and planning. And we have also received approval from the fire marshal. Therefore, staff recommends approval, and Nathan from the light department is here if you have any questions.
So they're selling a substation.
I'll let Nathan explain.
You know, your electrons from your neutrons.
He probably does,
Yeah.
so.
So the substation was constructed for the purpose of serving the paper recycling plant. The city never really owned it until last year. Cascades sold the property, the building, and with the settlement, the city retained the substation contents. It was with Cascade prior to that settlement. There was a lease for that land to Cascade. They own the facility. substation. It's not used by the city. It was solely for the intent of the paper recycling plant, which the new owner wishes to use.
So this was built solely to serve, I think it's called Hagerstown Fiber at one time.
Hagerstown Fiber Light, News Tech, Cascades, yes, multiple. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay,
With that,
you'll have appropriate rights to connect to,
this is not.
stretch your lines over.
This is the fire station.
string your lines over and all that.
Yes, the substation currently is, it is served from our substation, which is from former health plant. That's how we currently serve it. The property is lots of lines, Frank Edison, ourselves, over the property. There are no future plans for new facilities.
I don't have more questions. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just out of question, has anybody looked into whether this would be beneficial in the future to the city? Concerning whether the capacity of the existing old municipal plant may need to be expanded?
We have several substations in the area, the old municipal light plant. In front of that, we have a capacity of 10 megawatts. We have the substation a few blocks away, the old Zaire substation. Capacity in that area is not really required. We have a third substation at Frederick Street by the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay. Anything else? I don't need. Any other questions? Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the plat for the creation of a lot for the electric substation. With the one correction by the city engineer. Is that correct? Is that
Will you be voting on this separately on the council? Okay,
right? No, I'm not voting on this
all
at
right.
council level, am I? The sale, but not this part. Probably. I rescind my motion.
Yeah, I just,
I take it back.
okay. Just
I'll make
also-
that motion.
Thank you. All right,
Second?
thank you. Chris made a motion, Jim second. We ready to vote?
This includes the provision for,
Provision 4.
wasn't there a provision? in
The
there?
city engineer.
What was that?
Condition.
There was okay.
Correction.
Correction.
Right, you
Okay.
did that.
Yeah. All right, let the motion reflect that the
Yeah.
condition upon getting the minor correction made. You okay with that revised motion?
Yes.
Ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Abstain.
Thank you. Okay, the next item, I need to recluse myself. So I'll leave the room. So Jim, I'll pass the gavel to you.
So the next item is the creating the
Get
lot
going.
for creating a lot for the fire station.
Stand by. Oh, that's right, it's a separate. Okay. This is subdivision plat 2021-11. This is a plat for the creation of a lot created from the lands of both the city of Hagerstown and the Columbia Gas Company, 1 South Potomac Street. This plat is for the consolidation of parts of several lots and an existing city alley right-of-way for the purpose of creating a lot that Columbia Gas would sell to the city for the purpose of erecting a new fire station. The lands consist of a portion of the Columbia Gas Yard of 0.423 acres in size, plus Columbia Gas's holdings along South Potomac Street that are 0.659 acres in size. The lot would also include a portion of Alley 2-105, which would be abandoned and made part of the lot totaling 3,645 square feet. The entirety of the new lot would be 1.166 acres. Public access to the remaining alley would be designed as part of the site plan for the fire station. A 24-foot wide access easement through the Columbia Gas Yard, providing access to the rear of the fire station site, is also shown on the plat. The property would be split zoned. Part of it is zoned RMed while the rest is zoned IR. A city-owned fire station is a permitted use of both zoning districts. This plat is being processed to comply with the requirements of the sales contract negotiated between the city and Columbia Gas. It would be held and not recorded until just before settlement of the real estate sale to ensure that it is created solely for this purpose. Should the sales contract not be completed, the plat will not be recorded. As is proposed, the lot would be nearly unusable for any other purpose and would require rezonings and/or re-subdivisions for most other forms of development. The following agencies have provided approvals: City Engineer, Fire Marshal, Wastewater, Planning, Potomac Edison, Water, and Columbia Gas. The Light Department provided conditional approval, and their comments were attached. Staff recommends approval subject to the items cited by the Light Department. And basically what we have here is the city is in the process of executing the contract to purchase this land. There are things that remain to be resolved, which may or may not be resolved. So it's possible that this may not move forward, but it's possible that it may. In order to meet the conditions and requirements of the sales contract, this plat has to be ready to go with a settlement, anticipated settlement sometime, I believe, in January. So that's why it's here. It's possible this plat may never be recorded, but we have to have it ready to go if it does. The purpose is the city intends to build a new firehouse with, I believe, offices for the fire department headquarters that would also be part of it, and the fire marshal. The access, if you notice that really dark area along the northern edge of the lot, there would be access through, they've had some conceptual designs done to this point, and if somebody wants to use that alley bad enough, they would be able to drive through what amounts to a side parking lot along the side of the firehouse to get back into the alley. So the alley will not be a dead end alley. You'll still be able to drive straight through it one way or the other. But on the south end, you would be driving through what amounts to the parking lot of the firehouse in order to do so. The firehouse is basically going to be located in the area up close to South Potomac Street. It would not be right on the street. It would be a front driveway area, but the building itself would be keep in mind, we're working on concepts at this point. They are subject to change, but the firehouse basically would be here. And there'd be a parking area here, and then also a large parking area back here where they also would, if all of the large apparatus would need to pull in, they have a large space back there because if you ever notice, sometimes there's several fire trucks sitting in the parking lot at the market house, because that's where the fire headquarters is. So anyway, this is a plat, and it would be held. The strategy is that it would be held and not recorded until just before the actual execution of the plat to make, the sales contract, to make sure that it is only recorded for this purpose.
So there are actually two parcels that are being considered in this, parcel A and B? Or is
They're
this
shown
being
as A and B just to differentiate where I believe where the zoning is. What you have here, this area here is part of the Columbia Gas Yard.
Right.
Columbia Gas is up here on Sycamore. You drive back here, they have a big storage yard. This is the back part of their yard. And then you have a series of lots here. I think if you go back in the land records, you'll find that there's actual, I believe there may be other lots that lot lines that are in here. But this delineates the area that's RMed. This delineates the area that's in zoned industrial. So this is a zoning district line is what is here. But for the purposes of the city, it doesn't matter. We can still build a firehouse on either one. Doesn't matter.
So the question I'm asking is, are those two parcels going to be combined as one parcel
Yes.
after all of this is done
This is all going to be one parcel.
and have two separate zoning designations?
Yes. Well, that's why we're being very careful with the way we're handling this, because we build a firehouse on it, it doesn't matter. The zoning just doesn't matter.
Well, wouldn't it be better to change the zoning to institutional then?
We don't have time for that. The city is subject to a sales contract that it has to execute.
We could do that later.
We could later, yeah. I mean, if we want to initiate it, yeah, that's not a big deal.
Clean things up, we could do it later.
Yeah,
I mean, I think
that's-
it's
that's what I
good,
was-
Because this goes against.
we could do it in-house, sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
The city itself would be the petitioner.
right.
Shouldn't be a big deal.
I'm concerned that it might pose a problem at some point in time, having two different zones for a property that's being utilized as one property.
It's not unheard of. I understand your concern. We've done it once or twice before. Don't ask me for examples because I couldn't recall exactly what there are. And I've seen it done at other places. It's not the best situation in the world. But given the circumstances, what this subdivision plat is for, if it was for anything else, staff would be recommending denial. But the purpose is to create a single lot for public use constructed by the city. And it'll be, and again, it'll be recorded only if we know that the sales contract will go through.
I think we get the fact that there are reasons for doing this that are unique to this situation. Obviously,
Yeah.
because it goes against our general approach, we ought to go back and fix the fact that there's more than one zoning classification for the same lot.
Sure.
Yeah,
We could do
that
that.
was my concern also.
I take it also that this is going to involve the move of the last remaining fire station in downtown area.
I believe the intent is to consolidate,
One.
the one in the south end and the one on South Potomac Street into one station, and then also have the offices for the headquarters there.
Anybody have any questions, comments?
One question, Steve, with the approval of this, would it be proper to put a provision in there that at a later date, after this is all finished, that we do change that to one zoning area?
What I would recommend that you do is, if it is that concern to this body, to have as a separate motion, sending a letter to the mayor and council asking that it be rezoned after all is said and done. You really wouldn't want to make it a condition as part of this plat, because then you can't record the plat until the condition
Gotcha.
is
Okay.
met.
So we would need to approve this and then make another motion to petition this mayor and city council to rezone it as one zone
I would use
After-
recommend.
after everything is taken care of, a recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, anybody want to make a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the plot of the, I keep giving the wrong thing, final plat as submitted.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Ron, do you want to add subject to the conditions of the light department?
Oh, I thought all those were covered.
Have they been satisfied?
Yeah,
I
I thought,
don't believe so.
okay, I thought you said that it would be probably, or maybe I misread it. I've read so many of these. Okay, yep.
It might have been resolved. I'll be honest with you, we might have gotten a memo and I just haven't seen it in my
Okay.
inbox.
Let's add that
Subject to
provision in,
conditions and-
with the provision that the light, was it light?
Light part.
Light department.
And that's your second.
Yes.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Same.
Abstained. Okay.
Okay.
Got one more motion?
Now,
Oh, yeah.
the other motion would be, I propose that we submit a request to the city and mayor council that once everything is taken care of to finish this project, that we change the two plats to the same zoning.
Second.
Any further discussion on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You vote
Yes,
for your motion?
yes. I'm sorry. I'm
Opposed?
trying to write all this down.
Did you get my abstention?
Yeah.
Steve?
I think there was, everybody voted in favor except Shelley and
Abstain.
I'm trying
Yeah, we love it.
All right, ready to move on? On a site plan for parking lot design waivers. Go management.
and that's what the- this was the thing. that was the thing.
This is one of those projects that just didn't fit into anything neatly. This is the plan for the paving of the rear yard of the above address for parking. This is a minor site plan, SA 2021-08 for 115 West Washington Street for a parking lot paving project. And just for those who aren't that familiar with this process, we don't do this very often. This is a minor site plan. Under normal circumstances, if it met all of the city's design standards, staff could approve this site plan administratively and you would never see it. However, they are asking for waivers to the design standards that we as staff cannot approve. Therefore, we have to bring it to you, even though it's a relatively small project. This plan is for the paving of the rear yard of the above address for parking. The property has been gravelled in the past and used for casual parking. With the paving, current design standards apply. Given the narrowness of the site, the applicant seeks waivers from the parking lot design standards for aisle width, reducing it to 12 feet from the required 18 feet. The applicant also proposes an alternate landscaping plan that shows landscape islands at each end of the parking bay, but nothing along the sides. We should note that the typical landscape buffer requirement is 10 feet. You put 10 feet of landscaping one down each side property line, you pretty much have nothing left. The island adjacent to the alley would vary from 17 to 0 feet, depending on its location, because it's triangular in shape. This property is only 26 feet wide. As such, compliance with current parking design and landscaping standards is entirely impossible. Given the circumstances, staff has no objection to the alternate landscaping plan and no objection to the waiver request, but you'll need to make a motion citing the criteria you are using to approve the waiver. The property is located in the downtown historic district, and this has already been reviewed and approved by the Historic District Commission. The following agencies have provided approvals: Water, Wastewater, Potomac Edison. We anticipate receiving approval from the Fire Marshal and the Light Department in time for your meeting on Wednesday. We have received both. See conditional approval from engineering with associated drawing. They request that the last space closest to the building be removed as shown on the appended drawing. Planning is approved with 3 minor corrections. Included in this is that the landscape island should have a raised curb so they don't get ridden over, ignored, or damaged. Given the circumstances and location, staff has no objection if they are made of asphalt rather than the regularly expected concrete. Staff recommends approval subject to a revised drawing being provided addressing the engineer's comments, planning's comments, and anything that will be forthcoming from the Fire Marshal and the Light Department, but they've given us approval. To give you some background on this, we were approached by the property owner. They're looking, this came to us about 2 weeks ago. They were rushing to try to get in the property paved before the asphalt plants could get shut down. They were also doing it as, they say, as a means of deterring trespassing on the property by homeless. They've had problems with homeless camping in their backyard, essentially, in the recent past. That's what they've told us. Then when we told them that what would be required, you just can't go throw down asphalt, then it created this process. It fell under a minor site plan. It's under 5,000 square feet of disturbance, but again, because it doesn't meet a lot of our design expectations, it's in front of you. We got it in front of the HDC. The HDC is okay with it. Really, the HDC, it's the back of a building. You really can't see it from the streets. The HDC really didn't have much issue with it one way or the other. However, we did run into a problem today. Late this afternoon, we were contacted by the adjacent property owner who is here this evening, who says that because of the long-term use of the two properties jointly for parking, basically riding up the common property line and either turning left into Mr. Wance's property or right into this property, there's a prescriptive easement on there where if they put the parking spaces along the left side, as you see it on the plat of the drawing, it precludes them from using their property appropriately for their existing gravel parking lot. I checked with Jim Bender, the assistant city engineer, and he said it doesn't really matter to them which side of the drive of the rear yard the spaces are. So if we wanted to require them to move the spaces to face the other side property line in order to maintain the area along the common property line to the west, so the adjacent property owner is not impacted, the city engineer has no concerns with that. I tried to reach out to the project designer late this afternoon, and I had not heard back. And nobody is here representing them today, but it's kind of a minor thing, but I don't know what you want to do with this, to be honest with you. If you table it, you're not going to be able to pave until spring. It's just basically changing those hatched lines to the other direction, moving the landscaping island to the other rear corner. Staff has no objection to any of it. But it is kind of an odd set of circumstances that we have in front of you here this evening. The adjacent property owner, Mr. Wantz, is here. He may or may not want to discuss this with you, but staff recommends approval subject to revised drawings, moving the spaces to the other side of the drive of the property, maintaining the common drive aisle up to Mr. Wantz's property line, and the conditional approvals from city engineer.
The city engineer wants one of the spaces removed too, right?
Yes.
I'm sorry?
The city engineer wants one of the spaces closest to the building to be removed.
Yes.
Is there a reason for that?
Turnaround, because if you notice how how narrow that driveway is, and if you notice what the building is to, I believe that's Chiato's law office next to that. Because you have the big building on the corner is Discovery Station, and then you have those two houses, one of which is a law office, and then you have the subject property, which is the dark gray, and then further west of there, that's Mr. Wance's property. If you notice, if they back the last space, if it backs up, you're essentially backing into the adjacent building. And they were concerned with that.
And also, I guess, if you don't remove that space, if you happen to get all the way down to the end, there's only one way to get out, and that's to back up the whole way, which is a long way.
Yeah, it's one of those things, the site is what it is. It's only 26 feet wide, what do you do? And
I take it that, I'm sorry.
and it's been casually used for parking for many years.
I take it that if you flip the orientation of the parking space to the other side, you'd also do the thing bed to the other side, right?
Correct, yes,
Which will eliminate the access issue that Mr. Wants has raised.
yes.
Did I hear you say there is an agreement between the two property owners?
He referred to it as a prescriptive right of way, basically, not quite adverse possession, but something similar. I'll defer that to the legal mind to argue that with you if he chooses to.
Does that have something to do with the thing that if you don't shut it off for 24 hours in 365 days, then you can't shut it off at all?
I don't know.
This is a rabbit hole
Yeah.
we should knock it down. But I don't know, I have no problem with just approving it with the condition that the orientation of the space could be reversed in the planning beds, and then I mean, am I correct? that Then you don't have an issue with it?
Yeah, as long as the aisle's cleared,
Yeah.
then I think we'll.
I mean, it shouldn't make any difference to.
Yeah, where is the area they want to use macadam rather than concrete?
Not that they want to, basically, the area, that triangular planting bed down by the alley,
Okay,
because it's because it's traveled all the way around it. My thought is that if we just leave it as a hole, it's gonna turn into a muddy hole.
yeah,
It's gonna be driven over. There
Okay.
ought to be something to discourage people from driving over it, and that would be curb.
okay.
But given the fact that it's back in an alley, if they want to do asphalt, it serves the purpose. Yeah, I
So it's
don't
just-
see the
it's
point to
gonna be-
require them to do concrete.
It's going to be flat then.
It'll be a raised asphalt curb rather than concrete.
My concern is
Well, that's a recommendation, I should say that's a recommendation of staff.
my,
They're saying, what do we do to get our paving approved? That's basically where their position is.
well, what I'm looking at is you're talking about putting a macadam curb there rather than a concrete curb. Is that correct? Against the alley.
Staff is okay with that in order to get it approved, yes.
I'm concerned with the durability of the macadam as opposed to the concrete.
I don't disagree with you, but given the circumstances, a minor site plan back on an alley,
Yeah, I see.
and if they're gonna have to do concrete,
Yeah, I've
probably not
seen
gonna get it in.
So,
I don't think either way you should have anything raised there because the old newspaper building is so close to the edge of the alley. If you're going west in that alley and you flip flop the lines,
Mhm.
the driver will then have to negotiate the point of that raised area.
Yeah,
The way it's drawn now, if they're coming down the hill and going east on that alley, then they'll have to negotiate that point.
And if y'all want to approve it without requiring the curb,
Yeah.
that's up to you.
That would be, yes, back there, I mean,
If you put the raised area,
the
that-
ones, the case of property, 123 West Washington Street. That's in the area that's been referred to as seating and restricted use. Parties parked in both properties on both sides, use that to get in and out.
Mhm.
You have to swing a little bit to get around. In the winter, I don't know lots, use, probably, be impaired by that. And that's right in the middle of the aisle where parties enter from both sides. Not over adjacent to the easternmost side of.
It would be, but
Are we gonna put that too?
they're talking about approving it with a condition that the parking spaces would be flipped to the other side, so that triangle would also flip to the other side.
Yeah, that's his part. But,
oh yeah, we're talking about flipping it so you have your central access.
yeah.
yeah, you can see the
Yeah.
aisle there. Photos.
yeah, because you can't, if there's a line division, it sure as heck is invisible when you look down.
Yeah. Looks like all one lot.
So I'm sure when people go in and out, they use both.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an accommodation. It's, I've been, without objection for 27 years. One of the problems is, and I talked to, contractors. Difficult to envision paving the nice side. Because, there's an elevation there. And
Yeah.
we've had cars, even with gravel parking lot, slide out of their, initial positions. If he's got cars in the middle, he's got cars down the road. I would want, we had cars that we would be parking in one place and come out at like 3 feet down the hill.
Hmm.
Yeah, I would actually point out, to build on what Mr. Watts is saying. This property line here, there's about a concrete block retaining wall, about maybe 18 inches to 2 feet high, roughly. So these spaces would be angled and they would be hovering over that. The one thing that the city engineer was concerned about, and it's written into the site plan, is that the paving should be slope. So it does not slope this way, but slopes actually toward the inside. So any rainwater goes down the parking lot into the alley, which has a drainage system. They didn't want it sloped this way because then you'd end up just in a real heavy rain, you'd have water cascading over that retaining wall into the adjacent property. So the idea is that along this property line would be a high point directing the water more this way and then back toward the alley.
I mean, does it even make sense to have a planting bed on the library alley at all?
Let me direct conversation this way. Can we decide now whether to flip the lines? And then we can talk about the planning bed.
Okay.
Is that all right?
I'm okay with putting the lines.
I'm okay with it, yeah.
Yeah?
I'm okay.
All right. So we're going to, at least our motion will consider only flopping the lines, giving the central aisle for driving. Now, when you do that, do you think we need a planting bed on the alley end?
There's two ways of looking at it. One is, it is what it is. But then again, the other way of looking at it is all of these properties over time, sooner or later, are probably going to want to do something in their back. And if everybody says, well, the last person didn't do it, by the time, 30 years from now comes and you have 3, 5, 7 of these properties that all did parking lots that they didn't do landscaping because one in the door before them didn't, then what do you achieve? So there's two ways of looking at it. I believe this is the same block that the apartment building facing Antietam Street and had some parking improvements done in the back. But I don't think they were immediately adjacent to the alley, but we did look at landscaping for that when they did it.
Much further up the alley,
Yeah, it was kind
On the other
of
side.
2/3 of the way up and on the other side.
on the other side. of the
So
property.
there's two ways of looking at it. One, it is what it is. It's library alley. It is where it is. But then the alternative is the planning perspective, which is if you waive it for this one and you waive it for the next one and you wait for the next one down the road, you have all of this new parking and then you didn't have any landscaping designed in any of it. So that's up to you.
That's what it's going to be, and it'll be tough to get anything to grow there because the shadow of the Herald Mail building, the old Herald Mail building,
Mhm.
newspaper building. I mean, it's just,
Well, I agree with your point in principle. I just think that these circumstances really are kind of peculiar. And that we ought, I mean, my thought is we ought not to require planning bed on the alley end of it.
None of this is a hill for me to die on as staff. I just want to get it off my desk and let these people pave the parking lot. To be honest with you.
All right.
I was gonna say.
But we ought to get something out of
Yeah.
it.
and I don't think we need one at the edge of the building either. For the same reason. Now there, actually, you don't need to restrict or not have that first parking lot. You can still allow that first parking lot because they're now backing out, over across Mr. Wance's land. They're not gonna hit that building.
Yeah.
Change the location of parking spaces.
Right.
Yep, I think it does.
Just park back in your building.
Well, it doesn't extend down that far. That's quite a back.
Yeah.
Oh,
So you're suggesting that we ought not to require you to plan bed.
right.
You have a waiver application in the packet. Again, I just,
What we do?
justify it, one of those 6 criteria on the front page of the waiver application. These changes are so minor, I would just notify the HTC that they're reconfiguring it a little bit. They're going to be fine with it. They cite E, removes a requirement that is not appropriate, especially because of the small size of the proposed subdivision. They identify criteria E.
Where's that list?
It's on the Schedule W front page. Application, waiver application, the standards of the subdivision, Schedule W.
Down here. No, I don't have that.
Where are you looking?
Mine's different.
They're asking for under item E, because it removes the requirement it's not appropriate because of the small size of the proposed subdivision.
Right, got a different form.
On page 2 of 9.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Mine's in the back.
So then you're.
That's fine. Yeah. I don't think Doug has it.
Yeah, I got a different form.
You don't have
I'm
it?
special. There it is.
Yours is just,
It's not the first page, it's the first page of the second attachment.
Second, yeah.
Sorry.
yours is
All
definitely,
right.
it doesn't look like mine.
Let me see if I can make a motion.
Yes, please.
I make a motion that we approve the site plan, subject to the following conditions. Number one, the engineer's comment that the space closest to the building be removed. Number two, that the orientation of the parking spaces be flipped so that it's on the other side of the lot. And that pursuant to Article 5, Section A6, Item E, that we not require any landscaping, including the planting beds that are shown on the drawing.
I'll second that.
Did I get it done?
Good. It's fine with me.
Okay,
Is that-
everybody
Are
else?
you okay with that?
There was a second.
Yes.
All ready?
I do.
Ron. So we okay with the motion? Understand it? Flip flop, no bids. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. And final. Rich American Homes.
Okay.
Well, Steve,
Yeah,
in that Yugo management,
yeah.
you're looking for a waiver for Tony Gettison.
A waiver
Ah.
from Potomac Edison.
Good seeing it. Right there.
Following has provided approval to Potomac Edison, although it was rubber stamped, then just it's not for service area.
I know. Oh, but you asked him, okay.
Yeah, we route this stuff out to pretty much every
All right. City Light,
Yeah.
okay.
Can you see this?
Okay, last but not least on the hit parade this evening is a final plat for Hager's Crossing Phase 2B8, Fallen Timber Circle. This plat is for recording the last 42 lots in the Hager's Crossing Plan Unit Development. Started in 2002, this development will be completed in the next several months. The following agencies have provided approvals: Potomac Edison, Water, Wastewater, Fire Marshal, and City Engineer. Planning provides conditional approval subject to addressing minor comments. And I did not get a chance to check the final approval, but again, my comments were exceptionally minor. They're just notations here and there. As they have a policy of doing, the Board of Education has submitted to you a report on school capacity that the subdivision will affect in the surrounding schools. The city does not have an adequate public facilities ordinance, so you cannot take inadequate school capacity into account in reviewing this application. Staff recommends approval subject to the minor adjustments that staff needs to see, planning staff needs to see. And Fred Frederick is here from the engineering company. If you have any questions. This is the last section. The end of it.
It's gonna be completed in a few months.
They're selling like hotcakes.
Hmm?
They're selling like hotcakes.
Wow, amazing. Not to mention before the finished lots pretty soon.
You have any questions of the developer?
Oh, hey, Paul. Could you, yeah, there you go. This is the area that if you go in off of Route 40 and then you make the left-hand turn rather than going into the shopping center, you make the left-hand turn on Bartow. And then you're heading back towards the circle. You have that wooded area to your right. This is on the other side of that wooded area. Wooded area to your left, I should say.
I was gonna say, left,
Your other
yeah,
right.
okay. Go all the way back to the circle,
All
and
right, very simple.
go around.
There's a piece of land behind lot number 367 that we probably saw before. What is that? Unhatched. So it's not as far as easement, just vacant land, I guess. I think I just answered my question.
Oh, what that is, that's just part of that lot. It's just that's a small piece of just that parcel.
Yeah.
There's a 367 is a much larger lot.
Oh, was that a 2? Okay,
What's that now?
or 364. It doesn't matter.
64.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's part of the forest, the open space lot, but it's a small piece of it that's just not covered by a forest common.
The designer's texting them, if you use it, you should put that should not apply for the forest conservation.
Hi, Dave.
He said,
okay, so
The joys of technology. huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
really.
that's. not-
Any other questions?
Yep.
We've seen this again many times.
Right.
Approved a lot. Approved it before.
Maybe for-
Make a motion to approve the plat for recording the last 42 lots for the Hager's Crossing planned unit development.
Second.
Any discussion? Are you ready to vote? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? This is unanimously. And the last thing I have on the agenda is published is approval of the 2022 meeting schedule. You're welcome. That's it. Any comments, questions?
Looks good to me.
All right. So we need a motion to approve it though.
So moved.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay. You included also approval of ordinance land management code. You want, anything you want to go over with that? What?
That's just for your file,
Okay.
because that's been one of the.
You know,
Is that file over there?
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
you know you keep files
Wherever
on
you
this.
keep the land management code, just keep that in my file.
Right.
When we do this, when we redo it for this one, we'll.
I'm on.
Yeah.
Very good. And lastly, I guess y'all haven't signed up and still interested in signing up. There is a planning commissioner training program tomorrow evening, starting, I believe, 6:30.
5:30.
5:30?
5:30, yes, 3 hours.
So hope you fail yourselves to do it at all. I find every time I attend one, I learn something.
Yeah.
You all can.
Staff just has one last question. And I'm not pushing this one way or the other, I'm just simply asking.
Is this preferred or required?
Either, indifferent. Yes, no, but anyway, your 10-day period on your comments for these things is up December 18th. Do you have any interest in a special meeting in the last half of this month to talk about these two issues? Or do you just want to wait until January 13th, which I believe is your first meeting in 2022?
You want to push it along?
Is that a
I kind
preferred?
of would like to, if
Otherwise,
everybody's.
it'll be February before they're in council for that.
Can we do it via Zoom?
Sure.
All right,
That sounds better.
Sounds good.
I'll set
Do
that
it
up.
during the day.
Yes.
Yeah,
I mean, I can do it during the day.
I
I don't know
can.
if it-
What's the date you want to do it? The 18th?
We don't, it has to be after the 18th.
After the
We're leaving the record open for 10 days.
Okay.
It would be the 19th, somewhere between December 19th and January 13th. Or toward the earlier end of that.
Well,
Depending
19th,
what's works for everybody.
19th is a Sunday, so
The 20th. to the-
20th.
20th.
Monday the
4
20th.
o'clock?
Monday, the 20th at 4 o'clock.
Okay.
So far, so good.
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
20th at 4 o'clock?
Is that all right?
20th at 4.
Tentatively set for that, okay?
Okay.
And as a Zoom.
It's a Zoom?
Via Zoom.
Yes. It's amazing you actually that you suggested is, I'm, wow, who are
Really-
you?
Really
I
short.
love it.
Really short. We
But
don't have
wow.
anybody testifying.
No, but
With-
there's no-
I'm really glad,
there's
yeah,
no-
I'm glad that you suggested it, so.
Testimony or with the concern about, about the alleys and stuff. So it's something you'll have to discuss.
Right.
And
Okay,
the,
but
and the support that you got for that townhouse thing.
Still.
all right. Well, we already have that.
Right.
It'd just be anything additional. All right. Ready for adjournment?